That's right, Broncos country. It is time for another edition of Orange and Blue today. Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason, and Pennant. Pennant's on the wall, Mace, not Pennant's like Pennants.
Pennants on the wall?
Yeah, skins on the wall. That's what John Fox used to say, right?
Or the old Statler Brothers song, Counting Flowers on the Wall. It don't bother me at all. Playing solitaire till dawn with a deck of 51. Smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo. Now don't tell me I have nothing to do.
We got a lot to do, including the Statler Brothers reference. You never know what's going to happen on Orange
Hey, if you saw
today.
Pulp Fiction, you know, okay? You don't have to have been around in
Right.
the 60s or know country music back then to know it. If you saw Pulp Fiction, you recall Bruce Willis's character singing it, you know?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the awesomeness of this Broncos defense, and can this turnover differential stay sustainable for the Denver Broncos, Mace?
Ooh. Not to this degree, no. And in particular, let's talk about fumbles as a part of this, because the Broncos have 10 fumble recoveries in the last 4 games. That is more than any other team in a 4-game span of a single season in the last 16 years since Tampa Bay back in 2007. And on top of that, 4 of the 10 fumble recoveries were unforced off of bad snaps, the reverse that went wrong on Sunday, and a muffed Mecole Hardman punt return that wasn't forced, that was recovered there in the fourth quarter against Kansas City. They are doing good things. They are putting some stress on opponents, and certainly the other fumbles are coming from plays that are forced. But to this degree, an unusual degree, that's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, but Mace, it is kind of coachable in a way. You wait for your opportunities, and this is where, yes, we are 2 minutes and 33 seconds in, and I'm going to praise Vance Joseph because you get guys around the ball. You make sure that they're around the ball. You make sure that no matter what the play goes and where it's going and what they're doing, that your guys are trained to be around the ball. So the fumble recoveries, the interceptions, they're going to come and go. We know football, it's like touchdowns, right? Touchdown regression, whatever. But just having these guys coached up to be around the ball and buying into what VJ is teaching them, it allows you the opportunity to get more if more are available.
And it's interesting that you mentioned what VJ is teaching them, because that was something about which Nick Benito was asked yesterday on a conference call with Denver area media. It's like, hey, who's responsible for these takeaways? So let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Yeah, and the credit goes to VJ. I mean, every Thursday we always have a takeaway circuit to begin like individual periods. So we'll go through that, and then just with every team period throughout the week, coaches always make a big emphasis on, you know, whether it's stripping the ball or when the ball's in the air, making sure we're making a play, or even little things when it may be an incompleted pass or a batted ball, just making sure that we pick up every ball that's on the floor. I mean, that's a big credit to, you know, Coach VJ and what he's doing.
It all starts with VJ, so says Nick Benito. And what a joy it's been to see Nick Benito this year, Mace, because I remember in March or May, some sort of M month, and I looked to you and I was like, man, Benito's overrunning everything. Because remember during OTAs, he was just like wild, hair on fire, just running past everything.
Has to be May and June then, because in March we were not watching anything. Right?
Yeah.
So
because Sean Payton didn't choose to have that extra week. I think that was April. But either way,
but we couldn't even watch press conferences because for all the free agent press conferences the Broncos usually do, they didn't do any last year, right?
Right. Yeah. So, but looking at Nick Benito and then understanding his maturation, matching it up to what VJ has been teaching these guys and how they're listening, Mace, that's why we're here.
Exactly. That is exactly why we're here. And They say luck is where preparation meets opportunity. One thing that you can say, even though you have the 4 fumble recoveries that were on unforced fumbles, you do have the Broncos being aggressive. It's like you can hear going, swarm, 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 right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that and so they're putting themselves in position to take advantage of when the opponent screws up. And the one thing that can do is it can get in minds a little bit, right? If you know that there's going to be a couple of Broncos defenders on you as you're taking in the ball, as you're trying to get the snap off, it gets a little bit of urgency. It puts a little bit of pressure on. As they say, pressure can create diamonds, right? It's creating diamonds for the Broncos defense. And going up against a very good, very prolific, but still a rookie quarterback on Sunday in CJ Stroud means that maybe you can get some pressure that can lead to an unforced error, the kind of which we've seen in previous weeks here during this Broncos winning streak.
Right. And now the pressure will be on the offense this week. Honestly, Mason, we'll get into the Texans more as the week goes on and we're out at the facility this week. But it's like, man, you can get the ball. Stroud's being a little bit more careless with the ball, but you better do something with it because they're going to do something with it. That's for sure.
Yeah. The thing that you have to count on in this game, I think, is I don't know if this is going to be a game where the controlled offense, just enough, not being too aggressive very often, and hoping for takeaways. I don't know if that equation is going to work. And you can imagine that given what the Broncos are doing and the reputation that they now have, you imagine that the work in practice for Houston this week is going to be focused on ball security. In this case, ball security is going to be job security. And the thing is, they're running the Shanahan-McVay offense, and you can play ball security football with that style of offense. That is a tool that you've got on your belt. Then it comes down to C.J. Stroud making good decisions. And by and large, with just a couple of exceptions this year, he has made really good decisions, playing well beyond his rookie level in terms of how he is seeing things. I mean, frankly, it's kind of shocking how mature CJ Stroud has played over the years. Not in terms of this year, not his demeanor, but he's playing on the field and he's making decisions by and large with the maturity of an experienced veteran. The time he seemed to lose the plot was against Arizona 9 days ago, but there he was last week, and he played well enough to give them a chance to win the game, a game that it probably at least should have taken to overtime, if not for other things that went against the Texans in that game against the Jaguars.
Stroud is making full field reads. Watching his film, he's making full field reads. He's dangerous, and he's calm. So lots to get to here with this. Tom asked in the chat room, why can't it be sustainable? You got some turnover-prone teams. Turnovers will come and go, but I do like that Tom highlights some of their upcoming opponents and go get after it. Make sure you're around the ball and be opportunistic. Be ready, and that's what VJ's preparing these guys for.
Yeah, Detroit especially has been a fountain of turnovers the last couple of weeks, but the thing is, turnovers tend to, it's a cliche, it's like sacks. They come in bunches. That's why you tend to just take a look at the end of the season after 17 games and see where you are. You're in a hot stretch when it comes to takeaways and generating them. You're not always going to stay in that hot stretch. And I think that if there's a question for the Broncos and their viability as a playoff contender, it is, okay, what does it look like when they're not getting these takeaways? What does their success equation become? Even that Green Bay game, I mean, you've got a key takeaway there at the end when PJ Locke gets the interception. And that's set up by being in long yardage because of, let's face it, a questionable holding call against the Packers on that drive. So things like that remind you that even though this team has won 5 in a row, it's still kind of on a knife's edge. They were on the negative side of the knife's edge in the first couple of weeks of the season. They've been on the positive edge of the knife's edge for most of the last 5 games. These things over time tend to even out over the years. Maybe not even out in a single year because 17 games is a small sample size, but they tend to even out over time.
Yeah, and we'll continue to watch and see if it does for the Denver Broncos. Now, with the Justin Simmons clip that we have for everybody, Mace, I need you to set this up. because Simmons always great to talk to, and kind of like the Garett Bolles clip we played yesterday. There's a lot packed into these 30 seconds, so set it up for us, brother.
Yeah, well, one of the things coming out, of course, of the last game was the questionable calls against PJ Locke, Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper. And so first I had asked him if he felt like they were being targeted by the officials, and he had a really good answer. He said, no, I don't think so. It's on us to do better. I think it was the kind of response you expect from a team captain, very much, I'm not going to blame others. What can we do to get this right? Gosh, this is the kind of thing that you have discussions with friends about this sort of thing, right? When there are people around who are just seem to blame everybody but themselves. Sometimes even if you're not in the wrong, you kind of have to take the responsibility on yourself and say, what can I do better, right? And so it was good to hear that. And so what I asked then was about how this team is resilient, because you go back to earlier this year and in previous years, it seems like one bad call could just send them into a spiral. That's not happening this year. Here's what Justin had to say.
Yeah, Sean. I think Sean's did a good job of preaching next play to us, and sometimes the ball doesn't roll your way, and next play, hey, we still got plenty of time to make a play. In terms of Baron's play or PJ's play, none of those plays were the game-ending plays, and even if they were, there were those 4 or 5 other plays throughout a game that would have been just as deciding. We just didn't see it at the time. So, yeah, just pin your ears back, keep being aggressive, be smart, play within the rules of the game, and we'll fix the little mistakes.
Keep being you. Right? And I won't get too deep or personal, but even if someone else is messing up, make sure that you are the better person. Make sure you're doing what you need to do, right? And that's kind of handling your business. And it's the Sean Payton culture. There's that word again, Mace, that these guys are buying into.
Yeah, I mean, Justin did right at the top say Sean Payton, right? And I think it's interesting how I feel like perceptions have changed for the better now that you're getting tangible results to go along with it. And when you're not getting those results early, it's hard to kind of say, okay, is this going to work? Where is this going? I remember talking with Adam Troutman a few weeks ago, and he said one of the things about Sean Payton in New Orleans, Troutman, of course, came in 2020 as a draft pick, and he comes into a veteran-laden team that has experienced the positive results of the teaching they're getting. They see, okay, they have the tangible evidence that says this is how it's going to work, and then young players can come in and quickly buy into that, right? Because they can look at the ledger. It wasn't the case here in Denver this year, right? You had an entire locker room of veterans and young players coming in that, aside from the guys in New Orleans, didn't really understand, okay, this is where it's eventually going to go, that you have to trust the process a bit. At 1-5, you could kind of see some cracks developing, right? You had to look deeper to see evidence of what was going on. You had to look, for example, at special teams, which is always a particular point of emphasis for a Sean Payton club. You had to look at the improvement on special teams that was already there, even early in the season, right? And now, here we are, you're 5 in a row, and you get that sense that guys are nodding their heads like, okay, yeah, we get it, all right? We get it. This is what all the work was for. All the off-season stuff was different. We didn't go into the classroom for the first month of the year. Practice grinds to a halt to discuss a specific situation. I remember one day they ground practice to a halt to talk about fair catch, free kick, right? Something that's incredibly obscure. But all those, what was it, 43 different situations, or 53 or 75, depending on who you ask. All these scenarios, learning about the little things and how to kind of be aware and have mental discipline. Now you're seeing the fruit of that. And that makes it going forward easier to get buy-in. And if this team is a playoff team at the end of the season, even if they're one and done, even if more changes come in the off season, Everybody that comes in the off season is going to come into a locker room where they've got the culture of everyone understanding, like, okay, these methods get results. This works.
A lot of teachable moments when we've watched practice throughout the offseason, training camp, and into the regular season. A shared moment, as we say, Mace, here on this show. It is Orange and Blue today. I'll say it's like, and you can share a story if you have one, Mace. I'm sure you do. But when I was growing up, I always wondered, like, man, why is my dad so tough on me? My dad's probably watching right now, so shout out Sammy Lammy. But then when I got older and things were tough, and I'd be like, I got this. My dad made me tough.
Yeah.
You know, my mom made me tough. So like, it's kind of like that where they've realized, like, why is he so gritchy? Why is he so hard on us? And then when you're winning and it's working, you're like, oh, now I know why.
It's all those little things along the way. For those who watch Ted Lasso, if you've seen season 3, there's a eureka moment that the writer covering the team, Trent Krim, has when he realizes that it's all the little things over the years in terms of building a culture, building a team, building cohesion, and that makes it possible for them to have some big success, right? And I feel like we're seeing some of these types of moments going on with the Broncos right now, to where it's like, oh, all right, now I get it. This little thing that we were working on in early June, this is a reason why we're succeeding. Even the way they went about off-season work, taking that first month and focusing on strength and conditioning and putting all the learning of the scheme aside for a month and focusing on, you know, getting the body in shape. What are we seeing less of now, Cease? We're seeing fewer injuries. We're seeing fewer soft tissue injuries. We're going to knock on wood that they don't have a sudden strike of them. Not that you're seeing them all vanish, but when you look out there and you see that offensive line, it's the same 5 guys as it was at the start of the year. They've had the same offensive line. They've stayed healthy. Hey, this is the sort of thing we're talking about. A little thing that you wondered, oh, is this really going to have an impact? And then you realize, oh, heck yeah, it does. I mean,
Yeah.
this method, you know, Sean Payton may drive you so crazy sometimes, but there is a method to the madness, and the method does work.
Yes, I'll be like Waterboy. I'm going to keep doing both because it makes me feel good. Mace, I'm going to ride off of Andy's question here.
Okay.
Are the Broncos lucky or good? I think they're both, because you have to be. And I'll take you back to 2012. The Baltimore Ravens were not the best team in the NFL that won the Super Bowl that year. They won it all, but they weren't the best team. The Broncos were. Yeah. So do you have to be lucky and good? Yeah. And did I say Broncos and Super Bowl in the same sentence? Yeah. I don't think they'll get there, but postseason, maybe win a game. I like it.
And you have to get those things happening at the right time. Okay. Yep. Here's where luck can be involved. If you lose the wrong player at the worst possible time, that's bad luck. I mean, we're hearing about all sorts of things in Buffalo right now. Are we having these same conversations if Von Miller doesn't tear his ACL last Thanksgiving Day in Detroit?
No, we might be talking about Super Bowl hangover with that team as the champion.
Right. So you can't deny that there is going to be an element of randomness involved. And I'm not going to, I hate to throw an entire species under the bus, but most human beings have a problem accepting randomness, right? That some things just happen, that there isn't a reason, there isn't a cause, there aren't strings being pulled. Some things just happen, and sometimes they're really bad because they happen, right? We have trouble as a species accepting that. We've come up with mechanisms to try to cope with that as a species.
That's human nature, because we like patterns. You know, we like 1, 2, 3, you know, red, white, and blue, whatever. Like, we like the pattern. So if something's out of the pattern, it's like, that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Now you can put yourself in position to have a better shot, and when there's a positive turn of fortune for you, capitalize on that. And you can put yourself in a position to have better odds, right? As things go on. I would say this: the Broncos, are a team that has put themselves in position to have a better shot because they figured out how to mask their deficiencies, right? And because they are able to be a healthier team than they have been. So there are all these little things that increase their odds, but they guarantee nothing, right? They just give you a better shot. And look, I mean, just look at the Buffalo game, right? The Broncos had improved themselves to the point where they had a chance at the end, right? To where when Buffalo messed up, they were able to capitalize. Buffalo gets 12 men on the field. Well, are you even having that mistake if you haven't driven down the field to begin with, right? They were able to withstand an injury during that game when PJ Locke turned his ankle, right? These are the types of things that when the Broncos were in a different place, they couldn't overcome. They wouldn't have been in position to take advantage of. Now they are. They took advantage of when Cleveland was down to Dorian Thompson-Robinson and then PJ Walker. Let's take the DeLorean back to early October. They didn't have the ability to capitalize when the New York Jets were without Aaron Rodgers and were playing Zach Wilson. Couldn't capitalize, couldn't take advantage, couldn't defend the run, lost the game. If they play the Jets today, they probably win that game, right?
Going away.
Yeah, because this is evolved into a different team that is able to capitalize.
Well, let's talk about Russell Wilson, shall we? And there was a piece from The Athletic. Who did it? Was it our friend Nick Kosmider?
Mike Sando.
Mike Sando's perfect.
Mike Sando's big thing is writing the stories where he quotes anonymous personnel executives and coaches.
And he's one of the best in the business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's something in there that we need to dive into. Cease, you want to share this quote?
Yeah, I'll share the quote coming from Mike Sando of The Athletic. Quote, Sean is calling the game almost as if Russell is a rookie quarterback, a different opposing defensive coach said. Basically, it's run, and if he's not throwing it either one or two in a progression, he can scramble, which plays into his strengths. I hate to use this term, but he's a game manager. He's a very good one, too. Close quote. Mace, that is a notion that you and I have had for quite some time.
It's a controlled game that is playing to what the quarterback's ability is at this time.
Why is that a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing.
And look, it works. It's maximizing what this team can be. And look, we've mentioned Tim Tebow, right? We've mentioned Jake Plummer. This is not to say that Russell Wilson is a quarterback like Tim Tebow. He's much better than Tim Tebow. This is not to say that he is apples for apples like Jake Plummer. But what those seasons, 2011 and 2005, have in common is that you had coaches who adapted tactics and scheme to fit what the quarterback could do well and minimize the deficiencies of what they couldn't. And so that's why in 2005 you had Jake Plummer, referred to as No Mistake Jake, playing a very controlled brand of football that allowed him to have a very good season and the Broncos to have a 13-3 record that, by the way, remains their best record since Super Bowl 33. So it was an excellent season made possible by having a quarterback play within his limitations at that point. 6 years later with Tim Tebow, John Fox, Mike McCoy, Adam Gase collectively altered the offense to play to Tebow's strengths, minimize his deficiencies, got by for as long as they could, and the result was a playoff appearance and even a playoff win that nobody saw coming, right? This is what good coaching is. It is not about trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. See what we saw last year. It is about taking the abilities of your players and molding things to what works best for them. And what's working best for Russell Wilson is this controlled brand of football, a lot of dump-offs, a lot of checkdowns, taking some judicious vertical shots, and then after 1-2, letting him scramble. And we see that scrambling ability is still there. The ability to buy time. He's still a quarterback that can generate chaos, working with his pass catching targets, breaking off their routes as they scramble. It'll buy you time for things that go beyond play structure. Last year, you have Nathaniel Hackett asking Russell Wilson to drop back and then stay back there and go through progressions and go boom, 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 and then you start moving him around. By then it's too late. He's caught. He's sacked. This year it's boom, boom, and then start freelancing, because you know what? A decisive scramble can still be a really good play. The problem was last year when he scrambled, it was indecisive and it was too late.
Yep. Because he can't make up for it with his legs anymore. You could be too late in Seattle, and then you're just outrunning guys. Now he can't, and that's why we've seen the direction of Russell Wilson to flip it to guys in front of him. If there's Samaje Perine right in front of him, but he's going to take off to run, he'll just flip it. And I want to bring this up from Victory Lap, and I'm going to highlight it and kind of agree with them at the same time. But here's the thing. 19 touchdowns in the red zone, game manager. Tom Brady was a game manager. Peyton Manning was a game manager. You have to be a game manager. I don't see, and I'm not saying Victory Lab saying this, but like game manager isn't a bad thing. And the touchdowns in the red zone, certainly, yes, go, let's do this thing. But what is he being asked to do? And then Tom asks, did he do this in Drew Brees? No. Now, when Drew Brees was old and he was, washed up Drew Brees in that last season, they had to do things differently because Brees' arm was just shot. Basically. But what he's doing with Russell Wilson is getting the best from Russ. Now, that's almost similar to what you do with a young quarterback. You and I've said it. We say it respectively. It's not a shot against Russ. It's what works. This is a results-based business. So if they're limiting Russell Wilson and he's throwing short and he's dumping off and he's making 2 reads and running and they're winning, good. The hell's the problem? But is this sustainable and is this championship level? That's where we get in the conversation. And someone's already asked in the chat room, is he going to be here next year?
Look, and this is where you have the discussion of what Sean Payton has done with other quarterbacks to maximize them. 2019, Teddy Bridgewater comes in for Drew Brees when Brees gets injured. The Saints keep on rolling. Teddy Bridgewater has a 99.1 passer rating. 2 years later, Jameis Winston, after years an understudy behind Drew Brees in Brees' final season as a player, Winston steps in, starts 7 games, a 102.8 passer rating, 14 touchdowns, 3 picks. This is Jameis Winston, whose last full season, 2019, was the infamous 30 for 30 year with 30-plus touchdowns and 30 interceptions, right? So what we are seeing with the Broncos right now, what we are seeing with Russell Wilson right now, I'd say it looks a lot to me like Jameis Winston a couple of years ago, playing within the limitations that are put on, playing a controlled brand of football, minimizing mistakes. Russell Wilson's passer rating right now is 103.4, and so that is 0.6 points higher than Jameis Winston 2 years ago. He's doing what Jameis did in New Orleans. This is what's going on right now. And if Russell Wilson did not have this contract with $37 million more guaranteed kicking in on the 5th day of the league year next March, there would be no discussion. We know Russell Wilson would be the quarterback in 2024. But it is that number that is riding over everything right now. $85 million, and then you add another $37 million to it. Do you want to keep going down that path, or can you get the same result with a quarterback for a lot less, and then you develop another one? I mean, put it this way. Is it wiser to keep going with Russell Wilson, or does it make more sense to have a Jameis Winston type of bridge to a name your quarterback, Jaden Daniels, who there is a connection because LSU and Sean Payton, there's a deep connection there. So are we talking about Jaden Daniels? Are we talking about Michael Penix Jr.? Are we even talking about J.J. McCarthy? Although I think if Jim Harbaugh goes to the Raiders, that's where J.J. McCarthy's going.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
These are all discussions that are probably going to be had over the next 3.5 months.
And that's why I say restructure.
But he has to agree to it. Well, if you
can still give him all his money. Give him all. Don't take any of his money away. Just make it a bonus.
Yeah, that's the thing. You tell him, hey, you're going to get this money, but we don't want to guarantee it for on the 5th day of the league year. The question is, would he do that? Is he inclined to do that?
Does he like it here? Does he like it under Sean Payton? I think Russell has come to realization. This is me just guessing, Mace. I think he's come to the realization he can't win the way he used to anymore, but he can win like this.
Yeah.
So does he like it here? Does he want to keep winning? I'd say the answer is yes.
If that $37 million extra went away, again, none of this is coming.
No-brainer.
No-brainer. It's like, oh, 85 million is bad enough. We want to have it go to 122 million for which we're on the hook that we may have to get out of. It's what overshadows everything. So look, it's not a slam dunk, but if you took that clause out of it, then there's no question Russell Wilson is a starting quarterback week 1 in 2024. No question at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a matter of team building. It's a matter of financials. As was said in All the President's Men back in the 70s, follow the money. You always follow the money on this.
Right. A lurker Troy says, would you take a cut in wages? That's not cutting his wages. It's just giving him a bonus instead of giving him that as part of his contract. It's like, here's a signing bonus.
It's saying, okay, it's not going to be guaranteed. It's basically saying, look, you'll get, if you're back in 2025, you'll get this money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're taking the guarantee out of it. This is sort of getting, when I say guarantees all the time, it sounds like we're talking about Tommy Boy, right? The guarantee on the box.
Maybe he's a elf sniffing glue. Build a model airplane. So I always mess up that quote.
Which is why, so as of right now, today, and this is why there's that $85 million dead money spread over 2 years. There's $85 million on that contract that you cannot do anything about, right? That is guarantee for 2024, and that is the prorated portion of the signing bonus. That's on the hook. That's it. Done. It's your commitment, and that's it. If he is on the roster for the 5th day of the league year, then the guarantee for which you're on the hook because the 2025 salary becomes guaranteed is $122 million in total. And I'll say this, and this is why, and as crazy as it sounds, you can't rule out the notion of Russell Wilson being traded. And look, you're not going to get a lot of salary relief, right? But if you traded him before June 1, you would take that commitment down from 85 million to 68 million, the dead money commitment, right? If he's not on the team. So you would get trading him would give you $17 million of relief. Not great, but it's something that over a couple of years you could work with and figure out, especially if your plan was temporary bridge to young quarterback.
And Sean Payton is rehabbing Russell Wilson's value, showing that you can win football games with this guy, whether it's here or somewhere else. He just wants to do more. Keep that in your mind, everybody. Sean Payton wants to do more. He's doing what Russell Wilson can do, but he wants to do more.
Schematically, tactically, he is an artist who is operating without some colors on his palette, right? Imagine being Van Gogh and you could only work with black, whites, and grays and maybe red.
What if you were Beethoven and you were without the string section, right? Like,
yeah, that's basically what this is. You can pull off something within the limitations, and sometimes limitations can lead to some creative genius. But when you've called plays for a certain way with a certain scope for most of your time, and it's a bit more limited in scope, it's not, again, it's a question of whether you can go all the way with this. Can you win a Super Bowl this way? Probably not. There is a ceiling to it. And if the Broncos are a playoff team, there's a pretty good chance that they may butt into that ceiling at some point in January.
and it might be fairly quickly. And the thing that I'll wrap up this conversation, Mace, is I want to see the body of work. These 3 road games matter. And if they start introducing more sail concepts, more advanced passing techniques that they're not doing, the Sean Payton offense is not in Denver. They're not running the Sean Payton offense. They're running a very simplified version, and it's working. We all should be excited. But all this, like, hey, Russell Wilson, he's the guy, like, let's keep watching, everybody. Let's be excited. Let's believe in Russ and, all those sorts of good things. But we can shelve the 2024 stuff for now.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just say we don't know and let's figure it out, right? But the thing is, to say that the question is answered today that Russell Wilson is going to be the quarterback in 2024, no, it's not answered. You've got 6 games, maybe more to go. And oh, by the way, it is not just about how many games this team wins. It's about more than that. And we told you that months ago. Like that's why whenever anyone asks me, oh, what's a win total for Russell Wilson to stick around? There isn't one, okay? It's going to be how it happens. And lo and behold, we're seeing a team that is somewhere in the middle, and they are executing game plans that not just we're telling you this, but you see, according to Mike Sando, you've got defensive coaches seeing this too, right?
Yeah.
It's obvious. It's obvious. And it's why you will probably see teams do what the Vikings did and start trying to force this Broncos team to throw. And then we're going to start really finding out the answer to the question that we've been posing here over the last 10, 15 minutes.
Right. So it's not a win total. It's not stats. Oh, it's like, please tell me what he's running and how he's running it. Is it sustainable? It's rookie Ben Roethlisberger, which was great for the Steelers. They went to the Super Bowl.
No, they didn't.
I went through the AFC Championship game. Sorry.
Again, there was a ceiling to it. Just like
what were they, 15-1 that year?
They were 15-1 and they lost in the AFC Championship game.
Yep. But that was with a rookie. This is with a veteran.
But I would say, like, look at how the 49ers have done with Jimmy Garoppolo, especially as Garoppolo became more limited in 21 and 22, and then, of course, got injured in 22. But there was a ceiling to it, right, that they couldn't get past. I mean, why did the Rams jettison Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford? Because there was a ceiling to what they could do with Jared Goff, and then Matthew Stafford took them to a higher level offensively, and they got that elusive Super Bowl, which is another reason why Detroit is such a fascinating team, because as good as they've been, we're starting to see when they're asking a little bit more of Jared Goff, it's starting to break down a little bit.
Cracks.
Yes.
Next thing you know, there's money missing from the drawer and your daughter's knocked up. I've seen it 100 times.
Another Tommy Boy reference. Wow. Well, for your customer's sake, for your daughter's sake, you might consider buying brake pads from me.
That's right. For your customer's sake, you might consider listening to The Fan, because we're giving away Rolling Stones Hackney Diamonds Tour, sponsored by AARP. That's June 20th at Empower Field at Mile High. That's right. Listen all week to 104.3 The Fan, and you'll get your chance to win some Stones tickets. The Hackney Diamonds Tour, sponsored by AARP. It's June 20th in Power Field at Mile High. Make sure you listen to 104.3 The Fan. Mace, I think we're wrapped up for today, right?
Yeah, but the Rolling Stones thing just gets me for one final thought here. The Sean Payton offense, what he wants to do, it's very much like a Rolling Stones title and lyric. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need.
And with that, we'll bid you adieu. He's Andrew Mason. Follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I am at Cecil Lammy saying thanks for watching. Do the YouTube things. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. OBT is BFD, and we are here for you. He's Mace. I'm Cease. Everyone, thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.